I am super excited to say that the only reason I am able to even come out with this episode is the sponsor of today's episode. So, if you haven't heard about Anchor, it is one of the greatest things to use to make a podcast. First, it's free. Second, they have all these tools that you can use to record, edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. I do it from my phone because it's much easier. I literally just bought one of those mics from the Apple store, plug it in, and now I just talk and it's great. Also, you can distribute the podcast wherever you want. Anchor does that for you. It can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, I think Stitcher, so many other places. And you can make money from the podcast. And yeah, you can start it right away with an advertisement like this. So make sure you download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. It is everything you need to make podcasts in one place. What's up, y'all? It's Dante, aka the Forensics Guy, and you are listening to the Forensics Experience, the podcast where we discuss topics in the speech and debate community with the world's most influential coaches, students, and alumni in the activity. And today, I am honored, excited, and just super gleeful, literally about sitting today with Justin Flynn, who he's so amazing. A previous co-coach with me, and you know what? I don't even think anybody who's listening don't know who you are because you're that amazing. But there's probably somebody who's gonna check out this episode in some years. So let that one person know who you are and what you do in the speech and debate community.
All right, cool. So once again, I'm Justin, also known as Sweet Pickles. That's my trucker handle. But more importantly, Coach Flynn. I've been in the debate community and forensics community over 10 years. Pretty much, I found my passion in junior high and then continued that throughout college, doing forensics and IEs and debate and all the fun stuff. I've pretty much done everything but duo. Don't know why, but yeah. Anyways, right now live in Milwaukee, and I am the coach for the Brookfield East team, third year going strong. I was on the team with Dante. He was the forensics father, and I was the debate dad, and we had some great children go through our program. So it was pretty great times. So currently that's what I do. I'm a coach,
awesome.
Landscape architect. I try to help the environment as much as possible in my side time. So yeah, that's me.
That's awesome. That's really great. Shout out to our forensics babies if you're listening. We love y'all. So let's start for a very, very, very interesting episode. I think this will take on. I want to make sure I give a disclaimer for anybody who is like a trigger warning for anybody who might be triggered by anything that we may speak of. I just want you all to know that potentially guns, violence, things of that nature may appear as a topic. And if that you might not be able to mentally handle that, then I would like to make sure you're advised to maybe not continue to listen on or listen with caution and have somebody with you if that helps in terms of you being able to listen and fully focus on it without needing to, have a panic attack in the middle of listening to a podcast. So I wanted to make sure I give that trigger warning out because today we're talking about guns, and guns are probably one of the hottest topic issues right now in the United States, and for a lot of reasons. I think that it is a very interesting topic overall, and it is really tough when you have something that has such a strong ability to protect us, but also has a very strong ability to harm us. And a lot of people are frustrated about that. I feel like probably the majority of people that I know are probably either at least leaning somewhat towards like being anti-gun and stuff like that. And I mean, I feel like if we're being honest, I think in the perfect world, like guns just wouldn't exist. Like I think it's fair to say that in a perfect world, if guns were never like an idea, like it would be a good thing. Like I know it's used for war and whatever, and it's a faster killing machine, but like just in general, it's like, okay, without guns, I think we probably be in a better position. But that's a whole different story, and we'll probably get to talking about that a little bit more. But obviously, I brought Justin on, and I want him to give us some insight as a person who has guns and is pretty pro-gun. It's very interesting to have him on the episode. So I want to talk about guns, though, in the scope. Try to at least focus on the scope of speech and debate. So one thing a lot of people are afraid of, I think, that I've talked to with people is like, unfortunately, there are a lot of school shootings that have been happening, a pretty good amount in the recent years, and it's always scary. To just have that happen, obviously. But, you know, we want to feel as safe as we can. I don't think I've heard, I hope not, but I don't think I've heard this ever happening at a speech and debate tournament. But honestly, with the scope of that happening at schools, I understand how a person might feel afraid that all it takes is some kid to say, like, what? I definitely didn't lose this LD round, and then next thing you know, some unfortunate things happen. Do you think, like, just in general, through your expertise, and I feel like knowing about guns, like, how easy, like, is it to, like, access a gun? Do you think it's a possibility that something like this could happen at a speech and debate tournament? And if so, like, what do you think we could do to be prepared at a speech and debate tournament to make sure that it either doesn't happen or that we're protected to the best of our ability?
Okay, so first, giving a little background / answering your question on how easy is it to get guns. First of all,
Yes.
Grew up in Wyoming where guns are just our culture. Like everyone hunts pretty much. And it's where it's just an everyday part. Like
Okay.
in the city, you have the bus. In Wyoming, we have firearms. It's kind of like that where I remember going to school, and just recently they stopped kids from having like guns in their gun rack, like in their trucks. Like before, it used to be okay. And I mean, I come from a culture where it was very, very easy to get guns because when you look at it, Wyoming has a ridiculous amount of guns. We have the highest amount of guns per person in any other state. And
Wow.
it's one of those things where for every one person, even including like infants and everyone, if you were to divide up the guns, it would be 4 guns per person. So,
wow.
And it's just our culture. If you've noticed, you also look at Wyoming, even per capita, when you do all the fun studies, like we are fairly low on gun violence in general.
True.
It's sort of a culture thing with us, where is other places it's not so much because we're used to, hey, like you go out with your family and you go hunting and it's tradition, and guess what, you have a gun in your truck because it's easy. And so with that in regards, it's fairly easy for most people who grew up like me, like owning guns and shooting guns since we can remember.
Yeah.
When you look at more of the city areas and such, it's a little bit harder because obviously you don't have people who have it, or you have bans on certain firearms. So it all depends on the region. Regardless of that, if someone wants to get a firearm, they can probably find one or find someone who has. I don't think the issue is getting the gun, but I think it also comes back to that mindset within that and using it properly, and something that I was always raised with. I remember being little and like, you don't point this towards people, always treat it like it's loaded, and just
yes,
courtesies like that kind of have been ingrained in like the less like suburban people. But going into this and going into the potential of schools, I did do a little bit of research into looking, has this happened in activities before? Could forensics happen? Could something do like this? Has it happened before? And it hasn't, luckily. And activities in general, like there was one gun brought once, but for the most part, it's something you don't see in activities, but it's still something we should be concerned about.
Yeah.
Absolutely what you say. I have seen even this year, even with state, we had some issues where police had to be called and stuff like that. I won't get into it too much, but because of anger issues and all that. So definitely, I feel like, hey, this is a thing because, as you know, everyone is very passionate. When you spend weeks prepping out a topic in one round to decide everything, like, it's kind of scary. However, I think that there is always going to be a potential because right now, the way America is currently trending and everything, like, there will always be some availability of gun. Whether, like, you see the assault rifles bans going through or, like, just basic hunting rifles, there always will be guns, and it's just adapt to that. So with that being said, I think when it comes to directly looking at schools themselves, you have seen through the last years, because of the tragedies that happen, is more police officers are being involved in schools. I remember, and this is shocking, Wyoming, we had a police officer in my high school. So I was so shocked to hear when Brookfield East finally got one this year. And it's one of those things, like, and they were someone who was always there. So I think we are, like, getting more prepared for it, but there's always that potential. So going on to the next part of your question, which was what can we do to mitigate that?
Yes.
Because I think it's a huge issue that we always have to be prepared with because we don't know how people are going to act. And I think one of the biggest things that could happen, and I would be such a proponent for, is right now we have police officers in school, bigger tournaments or even state tournaments where, like, emotions get in the way. I think this is where police officers on site would be great.
That's so funny because that was going to be my next question, because I think it's like I don't think it takes anything for, like, big tournaments like Berkeley, Glenbrooks, Emory, stuff like that, to just hire at least one police officer that can be protective. Because I mean, like, those tournaments, like, I mean, like, as you know, like, I'm sure a lot of the circuit kids who are listening are like, okay, these are just normal tournaments for them. But for Wisconsin, because it's a state that we don't travel as much, you know, Glenbrook was like the equivalent of, like, almost like another state tournament, like, basically. And like, when you have that many people, like, I totally think a police officer would be really a very good idea to, you know, help protect and help mitigate the likelihood of school shoot, or I guess a activity shooting, or whatever buzzword I want to use there. But
and I think it does for a couple of reasons. First of all, when you look at studies where police officers were involved in schools and potential shootings, like, they mitigate either the amount of victims or, more importantly, from them stopping, which is good. But one of the more important things, I think, is we also need to look at this outside of just gun violence in general. Like, also, when you have a police officer there, they know the school. So how great would it be, like, as a forensic student, being able to ask, like, an officer, hey, where's this room? And they'd be able to tell you. Like, someone, like, who knows the school, like, dude, that's invaluable, because some of these schools are chaotic.
Confusing.
West Bend, you know who you are. Anyways, also, more importantly, I think it gives a positive influence to the boys in blue. It shows that they're involved in the community, and here's someone who in recent years have maybe given it a bad rap. I know I had an incident where I was talking with my kids, and they were kind of hesitant towards police officers, which I completely get and see some of their views and stuff, but getting to know them, and, like, I used to talk with our police officer in our school all the time. Like, he was great. He would, like, be a normal human and tell you, like, where to go, or, like, carry normal conversations. So I think having them involved would be really great. And also, it's just something that shows community effort and would be a great step towards preventing gun violence. Because, as you know, guns are not allowed in schools. Like, no one can bring those into public institutions, but they still happen. But the more I think we put good guys in there with a good image, then it works better.
I love that you mentioned that. I think image is very important because, I mean, like, when I think about it, I have a good amount of either friends or people that I know that are police officers, like a good amount, and they're great. I love them. Like if I saw them in their suit, I'd be like, "Oh, cool! It's my boy Andrew or whatever," and it'd be great. But then there are some people who are officers who might not be as connected with the community, and I understand where that hesitance comes from. It's just like this. It's almost the equivalent of like like seeing like a professional who you just don't have any type of connection with. Like there's no bringing to the community. There's literally I met a police officer here in San Jose who also hosts a drag show, and he's like the coolest person I know, and like it automatically brings down the barrier. Like to see like seeing that person one time before in a police officer suit to see them literally in complete drag and being a drag queen is like awesome, and I think it like
would be great.
it like helps so much. And in regards to that, I think I mean you can't really make that happen that easily, but it would be interesting to see have more coaches like who might be a police officer. Like I don't know, are there any people who coach and were a police officer in the past? It could be that help or anything like that. Like that could definitely be an interesting even selling point to the community and stuff and all that. I think that'd be really awesome.
For sure. I think it would be so great. Going on a tangent on that, how cool would it be? Because there's probably one cop in like a big area such as Milwaukee that probably did forensics or debate. If he could come and be like supportive, like he'd be cool about it. Like, and
so true.
Like, how cool would that be if like during your job you could support like the community you love? Like,
yes, I think that that is exactly what I think we need in order to really help. Like that would just be awesome. And I want to go back a little bit just because of what you said with the way the community is in Wyoming. Like I have never even looked at it this way, but I really think like for those listening that are still like a little bit like, in a disagreement potentially or whatever, or maybe or something. But like, I feel that honestly, if the entire United States was Wyoming, we might be in a better situation. Because there are so many other dangerous things, but we're taught how to use them in the proper way. Like if we had guns and we only knew to use guns in situations that would protect us and situations for hunting, I think we would automatically be in a better situation where we wouldn't like just use them harmfully. Like I have a car and I was only taught to use a car to go from point A to point B. But if I totally wanted to, I could just be like, hey, you, boom, hit you, run away, and literally commit mass drive-by drivings or whatever, and like take out a bunch of people.
Drive-by drivings, I like that. Hit and run.
But like those things that unfortunately is also possible and probably easier to do than grabbing a gun and shooting potentially. So like I mean I think that we do need the education on like how to use some of these tools properly, because like I feel like the worst and the scariest thing for me is that like all of the places that like I did some research too, and all the places that typically have the stricter gun laws are the places where the more school shootings are happening. Like if you look on both of the coast, like a lot of shootings happen in like California, New York, and the places that surround it where the laws are super strict. Like, but the school shootings are a lot less in places where you're going to see guns more often. Wisconsin, Wyoming, Indiana, and stuff like that.
I definitely think like I'm definitely thinking on the part you said where like, I wish everyone did know proper like education. And I think that's important, but it's also like, you got to realize like with that, like no matter what, people are going to abuse it. Like,
that's
and
true.
It's one of those things, educating people more like on the good aspects or the good states. Like, and it goes for everything. I think this comes to a real like good life lesson on a tangent. Like I wish like your state, take for example, California, really great at environment stuff. Wyoming sucks. we do oil like crazy. We practically like are putting aerosol cans in the air, and like we're that bad. Where you guys are like no straws.
Yeah.
Which, and I think it comes to like everyone just needs to essentially like say, hey, here's the good aspects, here's the bad aspects. Now educating and informing someone, because I'm actually really shocked when I talk to even my own kids slash kids in like suburban communities about firearms and how much the lack of knowledge is about and just the scenario of totally linking it to violence. And I think that's the big problem we need to get rid of is yes, guns can be violent, just much like take, for example, cigarettes or booze. They can be bad, but they can also, like, booze can be great. You can have a fun time. It can have enjoyment, much as, like, I have shooting a rifle. However, you have to do it in the proper space, proper time, just like alcohol. And I don't think we're teaching that. And, like, not to get too political, but I think a lot of politicians are that way, too, where they're just like, nope, it's bad. Like, they essentially want prohibition on guns, which, I mean, I understand where they're coming from in their culture.
Yeah.
But is that really going to solve it? Or are you going to see like what you had with prohibition, where people are still going to do it and you're going to look back and be like, this is crazy.
Like, this didn't work, definitely. Now allow me to say that cigarettes are never good for everybody listening.
Oh,
Don't you ever think that they're good at any time. But
absolutely. Sorry, that was a bad one. Yeah, shouldn't not say booze. Like, glass of wine a day is good for a baby.
True.
Yeah, stuff like that. Yeah, but no cigarettes. Yeah, that was terrible. Shouldn't have said that. Don't smoke, kids.
I'll forgive you for that one.
Oh yeah.
No, but it's so like just interesting in terms of trying to figure out the best way I think that we can protect us all as a whole. And there's so many small things that I want to talk more about because it's interesting. I mean, I'm trying to, obviously this podcast is for students, alumni, judges, coaches, everybody. So I'm always trying to give something that I think will be advantageous to any of those groups. But here is my thing, I think, and I always want to try to figure out a conclusion. I think that coaches, like, can we look through our database? Like, can we find people we know that have been police officers or yeah, I guess that's the only thing, but like something like that can use their skills and help us in terms of big tournaments to like protecting. That's my question, I feel.
Oh yeah, and I think it's a great question. And then asking like, hey, forensics gave you this, and this back. Like, would you be able to donate your time towards this? I think that would be a great thing because all of those. Yeah, go ahead.
No, sorry. I was just gonna say, for small tournaments, yes, but like honestly, like I'm definitely calling them out. The tournaments that like make so much money and it's probably the reason that their programs are like uber successful. Like, no, like this definitely is no malice. It's just being honest about how much money you have. But like Berkeley, Stanford, Glenbrooks, all of those tournaments, y'all have enough money easily to hire a police officer and have them there for that whole tournament. You most likely, without doubt, you have enough money to literally, if we find out there's only one police officer that has ever done forensics and he lives in Wyoming, or she, like all those tournaments have the money to literally fly them out, put them in a hotel for like 2 or 3 days, and let them literally be the police officer at the tournament and protect us all. It's not even a question. Like all those tournaments have enough money.
For sure.
But in the regards to the small cities and small towns, like let's talk about Wisconsin. Like hopefully we can find somebody who, I don't know, grew up in Madison and he or she is a police officer and they need to find they want to volunteer their time and protect and help protect us too, or even a small stipend. I mean, if we can give like a judge like $150 for a day, maybe we could also do that for a police officer and they'd be okay with that.
Yeah, for sure. Or like, hey, I bet you, knowing the judge crisis we have and everything in especially Wisconsin and stuff. If you were to tell me, hey Justin, like if you get a police officer here, that'll count towards like your judging.
Oh
Like,
yes.
for sure. I'd be at cop. I'd go to like Milwaukee police and be like, hey, need help, need help. Like if it was
So
that
true.
easy, oh yeah. But
Wow. Yes. And even
yeah.
and even on the small side, just to kind of get as relevant as possible, it doesn't have to be speech and debate, just so people know. Like I mean, like there are definitely some people who might have only just did theater who are a police officer and totally understand the concept. So try to broaden those experiences. Maybe you can find a police officer who did mock trial and that's it, and they still get the experiences that we're going through, and they can
Yeah.
help out too.
And I also think going on this and like advocating for us, we talk about like judges and us like definitely advocating this, but I also would like to challenge like student listeners. I think this is one of the things like you can definitely advocate towards your school and local district and all that fun stuff is for like better gun safety and keeping secure. Because at the end of the day, there's way more students and way more voices that can be heard. And
True.
I think that it definitely would be a great challenge I would like to give them is like advocate for gun safety because that's something we all need to do. Whether you're Republican or liberal, this is an issue. We all know it. But the first thing comes is like knowing of the issue and advocating for safe things like pass laws and all that. What can you do in your community? You can advocate. And so that's definitely what I would challenge.
I 100% agree with that, and I want to get back to that. I just want to quickly say to the audience, I hope you all are enjoying the episode so far. We're actually going to take a quick break just to hear a word from our sponsors. If you're used to the sponsors right now, you know what's coming up. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back. If you want to join in the conversation, feel free to leave a comment down below. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or DM me on my Instagram or my TikTok at the Forensics Guy, and I'll be replying there. So feel free to reach out to me, and we're going to take a quick break starting now. All right, and we are back from our break. I hope you got to probably listen to me talk to you for like 2 minutes about how I need sponsors because I need money and I'm so poor. Okay, all right. Anyway, we're gonna go back to what we were talking about. We were basically focusing on ways that students can also help out and advocate and try to basically figure out the best way to keep us all safe. I am interested in this because when you mentioned that Brookfield East just got a police officer, it's crazy because honestly, I didn't even realize that we didn't have a police officer. I just, I was just like, okay, whatever. Like I never really thought about it. And the every school that I've ever been to in life, we've never had a police officer. I mean, I guess college is technically different, but when it comes to grade school, I've never had a police officer at any of my schools, or at least the armed police officers, probably security guards, maybe. But the first time that I was experienced to that was actually at yes, the year before I coached at Brookfield East. I was at Kettle Moraine High School. Shout out to the Lasers. I kind of missed them too. No, I do miss them. They're great. Okay, anyway, they had a police officer, and it was actually weird for me. Like I was totally not accustomed to that at all. Like it was like I walk in and you see like the the office people, and like the first dude is like just this dude that looks like a police officer. And, I mean, he is a police officer, but he's just armed and like just ready to go, and it just like freaks me out a little bit. Like, and I understand the anxieties I feel like people might have, because honestly that's an anxiety. That's a big anxiety for me. Like, I mean, you see so much in the news and you hear so many things. Like, literally, I always still freak out sometimes because I just know in my mind, like I'm just worried. Like, all it takes for me is to like just be standing by a police officer nonchalantly, and I go grab my phone. They think it's a gun, and I'm just like, oh crap, and dead. And unfortunately, like stuff like that can happen. I mean, it might not be statistically always that likely, but like the probability does exist, and I feel like that's always been a big anxiety for me, a big fear. But I think that kind of draws back to our discussion about, trying to get these officers that have some type of connection to the community so that you don't feel those anxieties as much, and it can really help out. Like, I love seeing those videos, like you might see them on Facebook or Instagram, where it's like this cool police officer, he's like, schooling some of the young kids in basketball on the courts, or they're out doing the latest dances with the kids in whatever neighborhood, and they're just like having fun, and they're obviously still ready for duty, but they just find the extra time on like shift to like connect with the community. And that honestly is where a lot of the hours should, some of the hours should go. It's the connecting with the community, like more opportunities for, I know schools do it to connect with the community. Schools always have like those, like, breakfast with the principal and teacher things and stuff like that. Like, that's totally an awesome thing. Like, maybe like the police department decides to like rent out the Denny's and just invite anybody, and they have a free pancake breakfast, and they get to just talk to the police officers.
Cops and
get to know them.
Sounds totally great.
Exactly. That's the type of stuff that I think I really want to see. I really hope that it, changes our scope on how we look at police officers in the future. But it's going to take some time, but I definitely think that this is a thing we should be looking towards in the future.
Oh, for sure. And I think it's a great thing to have a relationship with a cop, because, like, for me, like, it's completely the opposite and different, because, like, anxiety, like, cops were always cool. I'd be the one talking to them, like, oh, hey, you got a Glock 19? That's stuff. Like, and I would, like, literally, I remember heckling, like, my, like, school police officer about his piece and saying how like Springfield makes a better one, and like talking about better groupings, and like that's a Wyoming thing that I know doesn't happen anywhere else, and I don't think will happen anywhere else. But I think it's definitely a thing that, like, I think everyone needs to challenge to educate themselves on what the other side feels. Because, like, for me, conversations is normal, anxiety is not. But I need to respect that. And that's one thing I've learned moving to the city is, oh, boy, life is a lot different. Obviously, like, the tensions and stuff, which I completely get. Like, going here, like, I've tried to have like conversations with certain people, and it's very, very different. They're not as laid back because they have to be alert and on their job. And it's different, and it's getting used to that. So I would challenge people, like, talk to a cop. They're completely cool, and they're going to be great with you. And it's one of those things, like you said, just getting that, where we need to also have kids like doing that as well, because if not, they're going to end up fearing police in their adult life as well.
Yeah, very true.
Which isn't good. I mean, like, we're past the NWA days where we had like total, like, the good gangster rap stuff. Now we need to be like, hey, he's my bro.
Yeah. I think that's the sentence I want to hear in the future. We're just gonna make a remix of the NWA songs. Love the police, but
coming straight out of the underground. Yeah,
but
maybe we should get that side project.
Yes, we'll just add that to the episode.
For sure. We're gonna do some gangster rap.
Oh, that would be so great. Oh man. Oh, okay. But I do think that connection is necessary. I think that we got a lot of these questions answered. I challenge the audience that's listening. There's always, I feel like, no matter what the topic is, we literally cannot talk about everything, and that's always the crazy feel to me. Is I have this want to just like my goal is I want these episodes to happen. And then it's like those memes that you see. It's just like, I want the end of this episode to happen. And then there's just a meme that's just like, gun violence cured, levels at 0. And it's just like, boom, done. Like, I cured gun violence with this one episode, and we're good to go. We don't
Weird Wyoming cure saved America from gun violence. If only.
But unfortunately, that is not the case. So we do
Yeah.
still need to have those conversations, and we still got a lot of things that we need to change in order to make sure that this is the world that we feel comfortable living in, and a world that we feel protected in. Because honestly, even the most fun things start to lose their excitement if you don't feel safe. And I really want everybody to truly feel safe. So I think that um, my answer is, you know what? Everybody just buy a gun, guys. Everybody buy. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm not. I'm not. I'm not gonna say that. But I'm look up all of the things that you know about guns. Listen to this podcast. Take what you got from it, and maybe there's some changes we'll see in the future. I don't know. Maybe, hopefully, some director at Berkeley is listening, and next year they'll have a police officer or whatever. But I really want to see change, and we need to make it happen. So let's figure out all the ways we can do to make it happen. But um, I feel like that is a very good transition to the end of the episode. I think that we covered a lot, and I am so grateful once again to have Justin Flynn on with us. It is amazing to have such a knowledgeable coach, as well as a great friend and old partner of mine who knows how to coach these kids, and he's on to some great successful things as well. So let's continue to fight that good fight for speech and debate. Let's get some champions, and let's make sure they're safe as well. So for everybody who's listening, make sure you like this podcast. Give it a 5-star if you're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you can hear those good old podcasts. Make sure you're listening, and probably the most important thing: share this. Share this with your friends, your coaches, your judges, your parents, your grandma, your girlfriend, even your ex-girlfriend. If you got an ex-girlfriend, call her. If this has been years since you talked to her, call her. Share this with her. Let her know, like, hey, I know we've had some troubles in the past, but you really need to learn about gun violence. So here you go. Like this podcast is awesome. And just, keep in the conversations with me. I'm always on all social media platforms at The Forensics Guy. And another big thank you to Justin Flynn for coming on. Thank you so much, Justin. It was an honor to have you. And other than that, y'all, I hope that y'all have a wonderful day, and peace out.